All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Truding. I'm in percussion. And as anybody who's checking out this podcast knows, I've said it many times, we started this Brooklyn bound podcast last year to talk with all the cool artists that have agreed to be on our series. And today we are talking with Emma O'Halloran and Beth Meyers, who have a set on our upcoming show, September 17th. And we're very pumped. Hey, Emma.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Where are you?
I'm in Ireland at the moment.
Yes. And Beth, where are you?
I'm over here.
Hi, Beth. That's good. Beth is in our studio / bedroom, and I am in our outdoor space in Princeton, New Jersey. But let's see. So I was just telling you before I pressed record, both of y'all, that we've started to, in this podcast, ask everybody the same 5 questions. And anybody who has been in the Brooklyn Bound scene before, actually both of you all have been on Brooklyn Bound in the past. Emma, you sang some beautiful music with Alex, and I forget who else was in the band.
I think it was just the 2 of us that time.
Okay, yeah, great. So in Princeton, I think I saw a bigger group do it maybe. Yeah, you guys did do it. And Beth, you have played with Damsel a couple times. So the first Brooklyn Bound podcast I ever did was with Beth talking about Damsel. So I will point you all there to learn more about Beth. And we're going to start this conversation off learning a little bit more about Emma before we get into this Brooklyn Bound set. So Emma, this is the first sprawling question that I've been alluding to. I've been asking everybody, just like what their path has been to this moment. So like I know you through, I think we met in Princeton through your being in the PhD program here, and so's work here. But what has led you from little Emma wanting to be music maker to I was about to say Big Emma. Big Emma is this awesome, Big Emma is a ski slope that we joke about all the time in Utah. So what got little Emma to be a music maker into Big Emma?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I think I'm not really sure exactly. I always sort of gravitated towards music when I was a kid. I think when I was in primary school, which would be the equivalent of elementary school, though, around like the winter holidays, like an army band came into the school, and they were like playing Christmas carols and stuff like that. But every so often they'd let a student go up and conduct the band. And I was like, and I got to do that. And there was something about that I was like, this is so cool. I want to, you can move your hands and you're making music happen. So I guess music always seemed really kind of magical to me. And yeah, I mean, I didn't have a huge classical background or anything. I kind of went the emo guitar rock band route, and so I used to play guitar a lot in bands and that sort of thing. And,
is the guitar the guitar's plugged in? You play electric guitar?
It's plugged in, yeah.
Yeah, definitely plugged in. Yeah. Plugged in the mini pedals before it's plugged into the amp, or what was your scene?
Yeah, I used to play like a weird, like I used to play like some jazz guitar, but I used to play in a band that we did like a lot of Pixies covers and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was just sort of like a stumbling through different things, and I was like, oh, I would really like to study music in college and learn more about like actually putting notes on a page, because that wasn't something that I really knew how to do, or like I had a familiarity with the treble clef, but the bass clef seemed really scary. So I ended up like taking a year out after I graduated high school, and I taught myself how to play the piano, and I did that like in a sort of fanatical way for a year, and then I got accepted to study music in Maynooth, which is like 40 minutes outside of Dublin. And I guess like it was there at some point that I took an electronics music class, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can squish the sound and stretch it and do things with it in a very quick and like almost tangible way. And I was like, oh, composing would be really cool. So I think I kind of like got into composing that way. So not really like pre-formulated or anything, but it was just like, oh, this is really cool. I love this. This is what I want to do.
Well, I feel like so many people that I talk to, or at least around Brooklyn Bound, are folks who are multi, compose music, play music, sing music, make music. You mentioned electronics as you have an electronic practice with your music in addition to, like, so what about the singer? And so learning about guitar play, were you singing and playing electric guitar, or I think of you as a beautiful vocalist in addition to an amazing composer. Where's the vocal side come?
I think that came much later actually, and it was like I think for a really, really long time, like I ended up like getting a lot of stage fright because I had this like weird thing in my head that everything had to be perfect or like people wouldn't like it, so I started to kind of psych myself out of playing, and I think there was just a point, I can't even remember like what performance it was, but I used to go to like a ton of gigs, and I saw something, and it was like the person made a bunch of mistakes, but I was like so moved, and it was such an emotional performance, and I was like, oh, you don't actually have to be like perfect. It's like a revelation for me at the time. It probably seems like common sense, but I was like, oh, I really love to sing, but I didn't really think I was very good, or I didn't have like the kind of training, and I at the time I had taken up some conducting. I did, like, after I finished my master's, I was conducting like different like kids groups and contemporary groups, and I had to sing a lot to teach them the lines of the music, so I just kind of got used to singing a lot more, and yeah, I don't know, it's just become something that I love to do, because I don't know, you feel more connected with the music when you're able to perform as well. It just, for me, it's an important part of being a composer as well.
I feel me and Beth both shaking our heads along, and everything you're saying like resonates so much. And I was thinking, like, I want to get to the moment of you two meeting and where this piece, how this piece is on Brooklyn Bound, all those kind of things. But when you're talking about the perfectionism side, like, to me, thinking about the like playing Pixies covers idea, and then studying music in college, those two things in some ways feel like these very different, the way we set them up are very different, right? Was the perfectionism side there when you were playing the Pixies, or is that something that comes from when you were in academia? I think I have an instinct as to what it is, but
I think it was the academia side of things. It just felt like the course that I did, and like I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed my time in Maynooth. But I think the whole practice of classical music can feel very rule heavy, and certain things are right and certain things are wrong, and I guess I was like, oh, if I do it wrong, then I might, everything will be terrible.
Get out of here.
So it just became a weird sort of weird irrational thing that I got into my head. But yeah, no, the playing the Pixies was good and messy, I think.
Yeah. Well, I feel so much. I think So thinks about this a lot, and I mean, I know in talking with Beth about music, like and I feel where you're coming from. It's so wonderful when when the Pixies vibe comes with whatever whatever classical music vibe or notated music vibe or experimental, whatever those things are, all the music I love, or when all those things come together. But sometimes it's hard. I feel like that's just it's hard for us to talk about them in the same way. You put on one hat when you're studying notated art music, and you put on another hat when you plug in an electric guitar. It's like, let's ruin that. Let's just have all the same hat. It's this hat. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's like this. Okay. So I'm realizing that my 5 questions don't 100% apply to this project, but we'll make our way in a pretty messy way. I don't think anybody actually follows the 5 questions. It's just me who thinks about the 5 questions. But I was really excited to think about putting this piece on Brooklyn Bound, because I had remember when Beth was learning the piece. So when did you all first meet, and what was the Beth, you playing this solo of him was the first time you played her music?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely heard about this cool Irish composer that was in town. You were like one of the first, right, Emma? You were like, Dan brought you over, Dan Truman.
Or Donica, right?
Donica, right, yeah. I mean, I think I might have met you at, am I right? Was there like a performance in a black box that you were a part of? This is a while ago.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm so sorry if it was your music or if it was somebody else's music. I can't exactly remember.
I can't even really remember what it was. I think it was,
yeah.
It could have been one of Alex's pieces, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if it had maybe, it was part of Soci, or if it was something theatrical, because it was in the black box. I can't remember, but I do remember meeting you there, and just being so psyched to meet somebody from Ireland, and that you were a composer, and that you were a woman, and just like all the things. I was like, oh, this is so awesome.
I need to know.
I'm
Emma.
a little bit of a, what isn't like, there's the Anglophile, what's the Irish one like?
Oh, I should know this, but
it's true, but you are one.
I'm totally, that's me.
Wait, Emma, can I just say, like, our good friends, hey, Elsie.
Hi.
Elsie must be totally confused. It's like, wait, like,
why are you in different
Dad's
rooms?
out here. We celebrate St. Patrick's Day more than anybody, and I just remember when we lived in Brooklyn, I would come home and Beth would be cooking with our good friends who both had Irish roots, and I would walk in to just, like, you know, the chieftains, or like
not the like leprechaun hat, like not
no,
you know, like
cooking soda bread, like
St. Patrick's Day parade side of it, like, but like, yeah. I have Irish in my roots. Like, I think I've figured out it's 75% or something, you know, like it's very exciting. Yeah. Like, you know, and probably that's not true, but like in my head, it's 75%. Anyway, back to meeting you. And then I got to know your music because luckily, Dan Truman asked me if I was available to do this Lewis Center for the Arts opening ceremonies, and asked if I could be available to play a piece of yours. And but I think maybe this is where you should take it over, because I don't remember, somebody else had played the piece before, right? Or you had recorded the tape part with someone else. So
well, I had actually, I wrote this piece specifically for Beth.
I'm remembering it wrong though, because I think I remember like the sounds, that part of it being like, what is this, you know? Yeah.
So, yeah, well, yeah, you're mostly there. But yeah, so I guess like Dan at some point, there's this big building in Princeton that was due to open up in like late 2017, and from what I remember, it was kind of, the idea was this was a building of the performing arts. It was going to be open to music students and theater students and dance students, and as a sort of like introduction, or like a way for the public to get to know the building. There was going to be like this sound walk where different music students at Princeton would have had a piece performed in different rooms and stuff like that. So I think Dan was like, do you want to write a piece? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, this is the room that it's going to be in. And it was this big dance studio. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. You know, there was kind of very, very like white frosted windows where if you stood in there, you're almost like a silhouette. So I was like imagining Beth would just almost play there by herself. Like it would be like a piece that like the audience could kind of like creep in and watch her play, but it wasn't like you were like performing for people. And yeah, I guess that's how we kind of got to know each other.
Yeah. And I just remember the process of hearing the tape, and you know, it was a very new process for me of working with my own sound in some ways, like and then also playing with it, you know, just fitting into it, coming out of it, you know, and the room. And I'm having this experience now, which is very, very different because it was very much about that room. And I do remember rehearsing with it on my own, you know, at home or in my ears, but it really had so much to do with that room in some ways, where you were playing with the speakers and the space. And that was amazing. I mean, I remember the visuals as well, and the feeling of people being in there. And it was almost like, yeah, we did, how many run-throughs did we do? Like 3. They were all very memorable. It was really kind of a moment, you know, really captured the moment.
I remember the picture of you playing Emma's piece in that space just looks so striking to me. And I remember at that time on the Soundwalk, I had some super janky drum set up in that I forget what they call it, the collab or something. And I remember thinking like, wait, this is fun to play in here, but that's so much cooler. What's happening up there? Like, I want to be up there. But I'm going to use this opportunity to ask a question since we're still mixing Beth's performance. Beth did a performance, video for the show, and we're just mixing it right now. And I've been thinking a lot about, and I think about this a lot with So too, in mixing stuff with electronics, or just in general, like how much parts want to poke out versus be kind of in the mix. And we've been messing with, as Beth was talking about, like, her part, coming out of things and sitting in things. And we've been a little bit messing with different mixes and what that does. How do you see the solo part interacting with the electronic part? So the electronics, the tape part is all viola?
Yeah, it is. I guess I should probably give some like background as to what I was thinking with the piece. So when it was written for this specific building, it was kind of like at the time for me, I was like gearing up to graduate Princeton. Like it was sort of like, oh, this awesome new building has just been opened, but like I'm not really going to use it because I'm leaving. But I started thinking about how, this building is going to be there for decades and decades and decades, and my time at Princeton is so fleeting, and most of the students, you go there for a few years and you go off somewhere else. And I was kind of just thinking about, like, what if like this building had I don't know, like a memory or had a musical imprint of like all of the different musicians that go through and play sound in those halls over the centuries or however long the building stands. And I was thinking about like some of my favorite experiences at Princeton, or like going through any music school, is like wandering through the hallways where the practice rooms are, and there's like this like cacophony of sound, and it's both like, it's kind of like a concert for me, but like it's a really personal and private experience for everybody else. And you're almost just like this voyeur, like walking around, and you're hearing people like kind of fall in love with their instruments and practice like measures on loop that they're trying to get better at, and they do their scales and stuff. So I think, so that was sort of what I was imagining, and I wanted to draw a line, I guess, from like the past to present to the future. And so I was imagining Beth's role in this to be like almost like the present moment, but she's like surrounded by this like imprint of musical memories of like different threads of scales and stuff. So with the background, the tape stuff that I had, I actually just like went on YouTube, and there was a lot of, these tutorials of like, this is a scale, and like it was like someone just showing you how to, and I was like, okay, I'll take a bit of that and I'll take a bit of that, and it was just like people showcasing the viola and like, here's how you get better at this or whatever. And then I brought those samples into Ableton and I played with them. So I guess to long story short, but like to answer your question, I think, yeah, the live viola can come forward and go back, but it's just sort of like this interaction with all of these other, I don't know, traces or ghosts of people who may have played in the building before you.
That's so interesting. I think I knew some of this, but I just love hearing it again, because it speaks very, now I understand completely I could say it with words, but I think I knew all of this already inherently from playing it. You really have this feeling of being a part of this fabric, and then also, and then you're kind of like, is that me playing? Like, like, you're like, I'm in there maybe, or no, yes, no, this is me. Like it's kind of swirly in that way. Yeah.
I'll say, I mean, yesterday, Beth, I think I was texting you. I jumped into the project to try mixing some. Everybody in the world right now, probably who's a musician, I don't know, is learning something about themselves during this time that's new. And we're definitely like, Beth hasn't been the kind of home studio people. And now we're like making music at home all the time. So it's fun to kind of get in and make that. but I feel like I was always soloing things because it was like, wait, is that sound coming from the tape or is that from, like, where is that? And some would kind of foreshadow each other, and I'm kind of feeling really cool that whatever the mix that you get to, Beth, it's kind of like, it's like choosing how important you want the present to be. It's like, maybe let's turn down the present a little bit here. No, this part is important in the present, but this part, let's turn this down. It feels like a neat conceptual idea of like representing the present and the tape represents.
And I think that there's just one other thing I'll say about it, which is that it's at the moment when you're playing it, when you're performing it, you're not really sure how important you should be, like and you do write that there are moments where you write come to the foreground or be more present, but then even the moments that are maybe not indicated or that seem like they should be softer, I have this head, this like play in my head of how much is this important and how in this moment, and sometimes it's what does Emma want, and sometimes it's like what do I want? And, it's a really interesting, but to tag on to that, I had this thought from what you were saying earlier about perfection and the performer going through stage fright and, wanting to make something perfect. And it's really the way that you write, the way that you indicate sound and leave space for freedom is really wonderful because these questions are being asked. It's not because you don't give the performer all of the indications. You leave room that I think for sometimes as performers we might be frustrated. We might be like, well, how do I make this perfect? Like I'm gonna fail if I don't have all the information. And then you realize you have this this moment where you're struggling, and then you realize that there's this space that it is supposed to be free and what it is in that moment, and this is the present, and it's just a nice piece to sit with. And now after having this conversation, I want to go re-record it. And just experience that again, because it's like a gift.
Oh, I'm so glad you have that experience. I think it's really important to me for I especially if it's like a solo piece. If it's when there's more people, it's kind of like harder to herd everybody together. But I love the idea of like solo performers and just, being able to show some of their personality in the music. Because I don't want to be like from my experience of like worrying about being perfect or not, I definitely don't want to put that pressure on someone else. So it's nice. And it's like, you make a mistake. We all make mistakes. Like you can move on. It's grand. Like no one's even, it's like a blip. If there's something happens that's not perfect, it's totally fine.
Well, I feel like especially with the frame you just put with Points of Infinity, like if we're talking about like all the music that has been played in this space and all the music that will be, it's really nice to see yourself as a blip. I think we should always see ourselves as a blip. Like it's just a concert, that feeling, but then to put it in that framework is really cool.
And just some more specific, sorry, I know you have one more thing to ask, Jason, but I was really tripping out toward the beginning of this, and I struggle still when it comes to tuning. That was a big, and like as a string player, that's a huge conversation, and it centers around the C string. And you don't typically tune an instrument from C up, you tune it from the A down. So, and I've played, I've played microtonal music a lot, but this falls somewhere different. This doesn't necessarily, I wouldn't call it microtonal. And so it's more about the experience we're talking about. So there are moments where I want to resonate, and there are moments where I want to just resonate myself, and not necessarily with the tape. So it's a really interesting, I feel almost like the me over here that's like wanting to be perfect wants to make this little caveat, like, I'm really in tune, guys, don't worry.
It's so funny.
Like, it's not me.
That was totally my bad as well, because I think from the one of the YouTube samples that I had sampled, I was like, that's probably in tune, like whatever. So I think I was like working with something that wasn't at the same like standard concert tuning, and then I had like detuned it further, and it was like, you know, that this doesn't really fit properly, and I was like, sounds awesome, and you're like, no, it's awesome. Not right.
Yeah, no, but remember, that was like I remember this struggle that, like, when I was like, oh God, and that I mean, when you were talking earlier about the perfection thing, I was like, oh man, this so resonates with me, especially, you know, like like the further back you go on the timeline of my career, you know. But I'd like to think that now I'm a little more open, but I still, you know, this is still a struggle that we go through.
I'm imagining the YouTube chat when this Brooklyn Bound is happening, and you know, it's like, what moment during the 13 minutes is Beth going to be like, you know, this is microtonal? You know, did you check out the podcast? Remember?
Yeah. Disclaimer: the opening is kind of microtonal, so.
No, I love the struggle. I love the, you know, but at first the struggle was pure struggle. But now I'm like, oh, no, it's like, there's this space. Like I said, there's this space.
Well, I'll tell you,
yeah.
Listening to it on my end, not knowing any of this
framework,
it never crossed, none of this ever crosses my mind as a listener. It hasn't, in a positive way, meaning like it never, things are just hitting me as a listener, not in terms of thinking that. But I do, not only one more question, I have two more questions that I need to get to. And you were talking a bit, Emma, or I think everybody's been talking about, you know, writing this music at a time, you know, so this piece was written to celebrate this moment. It was written in context of infinity. No, but it was written, you know, and I mean, like, I think I had alluded to also, like, all, you know, musicians right now, like, thinking about pandemic, how we're dealing. I know in Soland, we've been talking about how to make music in this moment. And I feel like this moment is, you know, just so intense on the level of COVID pandemic moment. And for me, concerts have been about shared experience. And so now what does that mean to have a shared experience in the chat when that's not a way that, you know, but then I think, you know, you add this very important Black Lives Matter moment into that mix. And at least in the States, I don't know what it looks like to you, Emma, overseas, or what the conversation is in Ireland, but I feel like those two conversations at the same time are very powerful, can't be ignored, and kind of have to affect the way we make music on in some ways, right? So what have, I mean, maybe this is just another sprawling question that we're gonna need a whole other conversation to have about, but how have you all been thinking about your art and your practice in this moment?
I think that is a big sprawling question. I think right now it's like, I'm just trying to listen as much as possible. It's just trying to research and listen, and I don't think I'm I have much to say. Like, I don't think my voice is the voice that needs to be heard right now. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting time. Like, there are conversations starting in Ireland as well. Like, it's a different type of thing, but you know, racism exists in Ireland too, and it's good that these things are being brought to the fore. And it's tough, and it's there's difficult conversations being had, but it's good. So I'm hoping things will start to change here as well.
In some ways, you mentioned listening, I'm realizing that in the first quarantine moment, in the COVID moment, so started this listening project, because we didn't know what to do either. This was pre-Black Lives Matter moment. But I got a chance to reconnect with your music in that moment too. It was so nice. I had started a quarantine practice of just listening to something new every day, which is not something I do in my normal life. But it's the reason I guess I bring it up is that in some ways, some of the thoughts that have been going through my head during the pandemic, pre George Floyd's murder, some of those listening impulses and some of those things feel like they're still relevant right now. And it feels like you talking about listening is a reaction to both of those things. But all of us could do more listening right now, as I blab on and on.
It's a strange one. I feel like some people are like, I have this weird relationship with Twitter in that I'm on it, but I actually like only use it to listen, because I don't really feel like I'm always like, what do I know? You know what I mean? So it's like listening feels like a good thing, and I feel like I'm learning new things every day, and that's basically what I'm focusing on at the moment. Yeah.
How about you, Bethany Beach 18?
Is that what it says on here?
No, it's not.
Oh shit! I'm supposed to change. I have to change that to be my Beth, she, her. Yeah, this is the time. This is like time to listen and read. We've been reading a lot and watch and I mean, it's feeling a bit like we're in a bubble still, like we're hunkered down, and how much can we really change things? But I think we're also focusing on our kids' education, and in the frame of all of this. And I've been really enjoying that challenge, like of opening their library a little bit more, and also they've been listening a little more to the news and not sheltering them as much. And it just turns out that their ages are a little bit more appropriate for that now. So that's been good. And that's been a good, it's funny because some of the reading we're doing is very, it's almost, it's very grown up. And then recently started to read some books, not even with them, that are more geared towards the 8th grade level. And I find that the combination of the two of those things is actually perfect for me, because as Jason and I have been talking about, we're really at the beginning of this this education as grown-ups. So it's perfect and appropriate for us to be getting the kid books and reading them and just kind of like starting at the beginning. So of our re-education.
I like that. The 8th grade level, we need 4th grade level, we need 2nd grade anti-racist.
Yeah, no, I can't even, the 8th grade level, I'm still struggling.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, I know, I think one thing that's come up for me, or talking with other artists, is just like this mixture of like how important art feels right now and how unimportant art feels right now, and how I know it feels to me like, setting up microphones and recording a piece of music that's really beautiful is an amazing practice. Personally, it feels like, oh, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm doing, and then in the same breath feeling like, why am I doing this with my time right now? I could be, and so it feels like just I've just enjoyed having that small conversations with artists about where they're at. So thanks for sharing. And in some ways, I think if that was our sprawling, heavier question, we've always ended these podcasts in a lighter way, but it also feels like relevant in this COVID moment, because I don't know the last time you played a show, Emma. I imagine it was, for people, it was sometime before March. Yeah, right. And so I know for when we used to tour, we would be in a van together for a long time sometimes, and when we start to share our stories with each other, the stories we share about our concerts are always the funny, shitty things that happen on stage that we kind of like, hunker down and experience together, the flower pot that, fell off the stage and crumbled on the floor, or just like the funny stories, but also sometimes, of course, we share the really, wonderful, kind of transcendent stories as well. Do each of you have something that comes to mind when you think of a show you played in the past, either the recent past or the distant past, that is a kind of concert experience that you could share for all of us that forget what concerts feel like? And if you're having a hard time choosing between the funny how did this go wrong story and the wow, this was such an amazing experience, please share both. I'm all ears.
Well, I have a funny one, I guess, which happened at the Brooklyn Bound show that Alex and I played. Where so I guess if you're not familiar with Alex's music, he does a lot of stuff with auto-tune, and it was like auto-tune effects on vocals, and we were both singing, and we did the sound check before people came in, and it was fine, and then when we got up to play, like usually we have in-ear monitors, and it was like kind of like we were getting used to them. It was like the first time I think that like away from Princeton or whatever that they were trying these out, and mine were not plugged in, so I did the first song like deaf. I was like just kind of trying to guess from like my vocal cord tension, and I was like, this is like literally my worst nightmare, because I like, again with the whole perfection thing, and then afterwards people were like, the opening was so beautiful.
Absolutely. I was one of those people, I'm sure, that said that. I was like,
I had not a clue what I was singing.
That's perfect.
I think that's wonderful perspective, though, right?
Shit happens, I guess.
That's great, yeah. Well, I miss Brooklyn Bound. These virtual Brooklyn Bounds are really, well, I say are really fun. We've had one, and it was really fun, and it's cool to get used to this, what it means to experience music together virtually. I'm down. I'm in. But man, I can't wait to have 30 people in our small space experience things together, because I have such memorable. I remember that show so vividly, and I definitely remember being the first person to rush the stage, which means take 2 steps forward off of my chair and be like, Emma, that was amazing, Alex, holy shit, and I'm sure your feeling was just like, yeah, but you should hear it when I do know what I'm singing, Beth, what's something that comes to mind for you?
I had this kind of like knee-jerk reaction when you first said the words. I wasn't prepared for any of these questions, so like it just came to mind, and I can't get it out of my head now. But I had a group for many years, like 12 years. There was a flute, viola, harp trio named Janice, and with Amanda Baker and Nuika Wadden, and
awesome group. One on UM, one on
there's a lot to be proud of for that time we were spending together, and we have many stories. I'm just scanning my catalog, but this was at the top. I think they would agree too. And we were in Aspen. We played a lot of intimate like house parties through the course, because we were also plugged in at times and played larger concerts, but we were sort of built for this intimate chamber music surroundings, and it was in somebody's very nice home, and there was a dog. and I mean,
you can stop there. I think we all know it.
I think our music, it started from Debussy and moved forward. So we're talking like pretty some weird stuff, and not necessarily pleasing on the ears sometimes. And there was this piece we just loved and really championed by Kaya Sarayaho. Oh God, what was it called?
New Gates.
New Gates. Thank you. I was going to say Into the Gates. New Gates. Thank you, Jason.
How do I remember?
Amazing. Yeah, and it starts with, and I think we had warmed up the room already, so we were like feeling good, and we liked to talk in between pieces and really get to know each other. And this dog had not really made an appearance until this moment. We knew there was a dog. Boomer. His name was Boomer.
Oh, good.
Never forget the dog's name. And this piece starts with a very slow crescendo of a high pitch viola harmonic. And I just really got into like how slow and it was like, it starts with a whisper sound on the with the bow. You can't even hear a pitch, and then really slowly the pitch starts to come in, and everybody always has the same experience, like, wait, has the concert started already? It's like really that experience, but slowly the dog started to come like inching towards me, and like really I noticed it, but I was like, do I play with this? Like, and I started to feel like, okay, I'm going to see what happens. I'm just going to keep going. And so and as it got louder, the dog started to howl. Like, it was like, you know, like really just low and then really high pitched. And it's like that thing where, and this happened.
Wait, sorry. How did the dog sound? I didn't get the full.
Not doing that one again.
Come
I think it's
on.
recorded. You can rewind.
It was low.
Yeah. So there's this really just like, now I'm starting to think of all the other times that as performers we just like, you know, shove on, and we, you know, the show must go on regardless of, you know, there's this announcement happening in the cafeteria, or you know, like the fire alarm starts to go off, which happened to me multiple times at Princeton. Yeah. I mean, like, and we're such pros. We're like, we can do this. We got this, you know? So like the Sariaho piece is just building and building, and we just kept going. And I think what ended up happening was the owner eventually got the dog, and we got through this piece. But it's like, at that point you're like, how was this good? Like, I don't really know. Like, I'm gonna agree with you there. That? I don't know.
I've thought that too. I was talking on Zoom the other day, and some friends, we were talking about these kind of stories, and I think it was old folks, and so Doug and Todd were telling a story about playing duo, and like Todd's trying to remember the notes that start this piece, and I'm so it like, I recognize that moment, and I recognize how you're not going to talk to each other on stage, and you're just going to make it happen. But my 43-year-old self is just like, just take a time out and be like, hey, give me a second. I forgot what I'm about to do. Can you show me these? Right. And then, like, you know what I mean? My 43-year-old self is just like, just
funny?
Stop, take the dog outside, take a drink of wine, and then do it again, you know?
But we are just such serious, take ourselves so seriously performers, you know, like, we've got to do this. It's like life or death. I must keep going.
Yeah, nope. Where the three of us are making a pact now. Next time you play Brooklyn Bound, Emma, and your earphone's not working, stop. I'll bring you a beer. Let's get it working. Beth, next time a dog is just howling during the beautiful, crushing opening of Kaya Sariaho's New Gates, let's just stop, take the dog outside, again, drink something, and then move on. And I promise on stage with So, I'm just going to stop every time. We totally, So has a thing where it's just like, nothing is going to stop us. But I'm ready to like.
You guys had a Carnegie Hall moment recently where I was appreciative.
No! this was with Stephen P. Mackey, right? The only time we ever stopped on stage.
Wasn't it Adam though?
No, it was Steve, and it was like 45 seconds from the end of the piece, and his poor guitar. I mean, the electric guitar just went out, you know, and we're like,
hey man, music is real. Music is
just like, we are 45 seconds from the end. But Steve had realized it, I guess. He was just like, sorry, we're gonna stop.
You know what? Even at Carnegie Hall, that's
Terrifying.
the thing. I think it's a good levity for all of us. It's good.
It's good.
And also this moment we're all in brings it to a new level of levity. Like, what are we doing? Yeah.
Well, this is good. I'm happy. I learned so much from this last question. The rest of I didn't learn anything from the first 4 questions, but I have learned a very important lesson I've learned a lot talking to you in this way, Emma. And Beth, I even learned something talking to you, even though we talk to each other every day. This is wonderful. Thanks for taking time to be on Zoom. I know it's not the best way to interact, but these days it is a wonderful way to get to talk to folks. Everybody, this is, if you found this, you know that you can find this on our website, on our Brooklyn Bound page, and the show is September 17th, and Beth will be playing Emma's Points of Infinity for viola, along with a set. Actually, Emma's countryman, Irla O'Leonard, will be singing a set, and me and Beth's countryman, Priest / Hyperprism, will be doing a set. And Irla and Priest are both joining us, as well as Beth's going to join So on some music of mine on the last set. And actually, So's also doing the first time as an ensemble, we've taken on Pauline Oliveros' Rolling Meditation. We've been doing it solo often, and now we're doing a quartet version, which we're very pumped about. So it's going to be a really fun show. Cool. Everybody tune in if you can, and thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks.